I am so glad you could be here today. How are you? Things are hard. Things are really hard right now, and they're hard for us as instructors, and they're hard for our students as well. As we really kick off this fall 2020 semester and beyond, in the middle of a civil rights movement, in the middle of an election year, in the middle of a global pandemic, there are two really important things that you should say to your students every time you see them. In one of my most recent videos, I talked about how the most important thing that you can do as an instructor is to be human and compassionate and empathetic. It's not so much about what you know and what your students know that's going to make a difference. It's about who you are as an educator for your students. And one of the things that I've been thinking on a lot lately after a really fantastic reminder from a colleague, Marcy Pope, is that one of the most important things we need to do as we start this school year is start positive. That sets the tone for the entire semester, and we are all in situations that aren't ideal. And we all recognize that, and it's okay to recognize it, but there's a big difference from starting your semester off saying, I hate online teaching and learning, this sucks, you think it sucks, I think it sucks, so we're just gonna trudge through it. That sets a tone for the semester. Versus, hey, this isn't an ideal situation for me or for you, and I want to acknowledge that, but I have put in some really great work, and the opportunities that online teaching and learning brings has me so excited for what we can do with this class throughout this semester. So I am excited to be here with you today, kicking off the fall 2020 semester, and excited for what it can hold. Two very different messages. You both of them acknowledge that things aren't ideal, and that's okay, but starting off with that attitude makes a big difference. And so there are two things that I think we should communicate to our students every time we see them that will help us maintain that positive message that we want our classes to be rooted in. The first message that I think we should be communicating with our students is, I am happy you could be here today. Communicating that you value that your students are showing up, that they are there, that they are engaged, even if it's kind of engaged, 20% engaged, they're here. They showed up, and that can be a big deal right now, especially with what's going on in the world. And so acknowledge that to your students. Let them know that you are happy they showed up today, and be genuine in it. There are a couple of ways that I plan to do this in my class. The first is when my students come to their Blackboard page, they see my embedded slideshow. And there's this welcome slide, and then the very next slide is the I am happy you could be here today. And what this does is it starts students out with a positive message. It's one of the very first things they see when they come to Blackboard, right? The first thing, grounding where they're at. They're in the right spot. Kind 322 biomechanics. The next thing they see is, I am happy you could be here today. That is a positive message. It is reaffirming what I believe. I am so stoked that my students are here, that they enrolled, that they are continuing their education. And I hope you are too. And so this is one way to communicate this message. If you're wondering how I was able to embed these slides into my Blackboard so that they are interactive, I have a workshop linked in the description below that is completely free, and I'd love it if you joined us in it. The next way that you could do this in a creative way is actually set this slide as your Zoom background for the first few minutes of class. Now, if you're wondering how to get a Google slide as your background for Zoom, I want to show you exactly how to do that. And this is kind of a powerful thing even beyond just this message. You can create these really fantastic looking slides and you can make them your background in Zoom, which is cool. So we have this slide that you just saw highlighted on screen, and I'm going to click File, Download as a JPG, a JPEG. It's going to download, and now that it has downloaded, I'm going to open up Zoom. So I open up Zoom, and I come over here to Settings. I click Settings, and I go to Background and Filters. Now, there are a few virtual backgrounds here, but none of them are the ones that we just saw. So what I need to do is click plus to add an image or a video, and then click Add an Image. And if I go to my downloads and search Date Modified, there it is. And I double clicked, and now it's here. And when I click on this, this will be my virtual background. I only have one camera on this computer, so Zoom isn't using this camera because the camera's recording. So that's why you're not seeing it pop up. But you can see how having this as your background, even just for the first couple of minutes of class before switching to something else, can really help you convey that message. And you don't have to say it verbally if that doesn't make you feel comfortable or you need to spend time elsewhere. You can communicate this message simply by having it on screen each time your students interact with you. The second thing that you should communicate to your students each time you see them is, how are you today? What seems like a simple default question right now can be extremely powerful. And this can give students a chance to, one, check in on themselves. Take a moment and reflect, how are you today? Recognizing and expressing how you're feeling, even if not a lot of action is taken on it, can be releasing and help you manage whatever is going on and however you are feeling. And so this is an important thing to ask your students. I've been thinking about it ever since I recorded an upcoming interview for the Epic Higher Ed podcast with Jackie, which you'll be able to see soon if it hasn't debuted already. But she talks about how her instructors would have a little survey that every time those students logged into class, it was just 2 or 3 questions: your name, the key things of like what you remembered from your readings, and any questions you had about them, but then also, how are you today? So every time your students could come into their Zoom meeting with you, you could have them fill out this Google form and ask them how they are today, and you can see that. And you can choose to take action on it or not, but the fact is you are meaningfully checking in with them, and you could see how they're doing in real time. You might adjust your plans for the day based on the responses that you are seeing. But either way, you are letting students know that you are invested in them both academically and personally, and that is powerful. I am happy that you are here today. And how are you today? How are you going to implement those 2 things into your course? I'd love it if you left them in the comments below. I'd also appreciate it if you liked this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps the message spread, and it helps me to continue making videos like this. And if you're feeling a little isolated and wanting more resources for improving your class and a community of other like-minded, positive educators, I encourage you to check out the Epic Higher Ed Mastermind. Down in the description below, I'll have a link to that as well. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourselves.